On the 25th of August 1896, the Zanzibar Sultan, Hamad bin Thuwaini, suddenly died in his palace. The cause of his death is not certain, but it is thought to have been as a result of poison given to the Sultan by his own cousin, Khalid bin Barghash. This claim was strengthened by the fact that Khalid took over as Sultan just hours after Hamad's death. Zanzibar was an island country situated in East Africa, but later combined with Tanganyika in 1964 to form the United Republic of Tanzania. Following the British and German Treaty of Helgoland, Zanzibar, Britain acquired control of Zanzibar and declared a protectorate over the Islamic State. Around the same time, Ali bin Said al-Busaydi became the fourth Sultan of Zanzibar. The British let him continue ruling since he would yield to their demands. Soon after the Helgoland-Zanzibar Treaty was signed, Sultan Ali declared the British protectorate over Zanzibar, banned slave trade in the region and gave Britain the right to veto appointment of future sultans. Ali bin Said ruled for 3 years and was succeeded by his nephew, Hamad bin Thuwaini al-Busaid, after his death. The British accepted Hamad's rulership, giving his compliance with the English side. 3 years later Hamad would die a sudden death, after which his cousin, Khalid bin Barghash, quickly assumed role as Sultan. However, unlike his predecessors, Khalid refused to submit to the British. The British, on the other hand, were provoked by this act. Given that Zanzibar was now a protectorate of Britain, the British felt that the Zanzibar people should have recognized and consulted the British consul before the appointment of a new sultan. With the veto right given to them earlier, the English side forbade the coronation of Khalid as sultan and saw his actions as a cause for war. Khalid wasn't interested in anything the British had to say. He wasn't gonna be ordered around by some foreigners. Soon enough he received an ultimatum from the British ordering him to step down and along with his men leave the palace before 9 a.m. on the 27th of August 1896. However, Khalid wasn't one to be scared off easily. He quickly stationed men around the palace. His forces were about 3,000 in number and were equipped with impressive arms such as 4 artillery guns, a shore battery, 2 boats, and the royal yacht, HHS Glasgow. Many of their weapons, however, were gifts from the British to former sultans. The British, on the other hand, recruited hundreds of Zanzibari personnel to assist in the war. In total, the British had about 1,000 combatants, 3 gunboats, and 2 cruisers. The British force was commanded by Rear Admiral Harry Rawson and Lloyd Matthews, while Khalid, along with his captain Salah, led his men. In the ultimatum sent to him by the British, Khalid was informed of the British's intention to use force if he doesn't do their bidding. However, Khalid wasn't swayed. He sent his reply to the British consul, saying, "We have no intention of hauling down our flag and we do not believe you would open fire on us." The consul replied stating, "We have no desire to fire upon the palace, but unless you do as you are told, we shall certainly do so." It's the 27th of August 1896, 9 a.m. and Khalid still had not complied with the British demand. The British commander Lloyd Matthews ordered the bombardment of the palace. At 9:02, 3 British ships, HMS Raccoon, Sparrow, and Thrush, released fire concurrently on the palace, bringing down a 12-pounder artillery of the palace guards. Khalid's men retaliated by firing back. At sea, the Sultan's HHS Glasgow fired at the St. George fleet but got sank by the British fleet. The crew in the ship raised a British flag as a sign of their surrender, after which the British fleet released lifeboats to rescue the occupants of the sunk ship. On land, the British Brigadier General, Arthur Rakes, was leading what was supposed to be 900 pro-British Askaris towards the palace when Khalid's men released fire on the unit, inflicting little to no damage. What was remaining of the palace was seized by the British. The Sultan flag was cut down and the war was over almost as soon as it began. By the end of the war, the Zanzibari palace was severely damaged. 500 of Khalid's men were either dead or wounded, and only 1 British sailor was injured. The Sultan Palace had caught fire from the explosive shells fired at it by the British troops. There was chaos in the streets. In order to prevent the fire from spreading to the nearby stores, the English fleet dispatched personnel to contain the fire. About 150 British force were sent to maintain order in the streets. While all these were going on, Khalid bin Barghash was nowhere to be found. It turned out that just about 2 minutes into the war, Khalid along with Captain Saleh and some other 40 others had escaped the fighting zone and sought asylum in the German consulate. The German refused to hand over the fugitives despite several requests from the British side. However, the German consul at the time, Albrecht von Rechenberg, promised to transfer Khalid to the German East Africa without the former Sultan stepping foot on the Zanzibar soil. On the 2nd of October, Khalid was picked up by a German boat which he climbed onto without stepping on the Zanzibar land and was transferred to the SMS Sea Adler of the German Navy, which took him to Dar es Salaam in German East Africa. Khalid was later apprehended by British troops in 1914, amidst World War I. He was banished to Seychelles but was later allowed to return to East Africa. He would die in the Kenyan city of Mombasa in 1927. His followers would be punished by the British authority. They were asked to pay a total of 300,000 rupees in compensation for the shells that were fired by the British troops against Khalid's men in the battle and also the looting that occurred during that period as a result of the conflict. After the war, the Sultan Palace was damaged almost beyond repair. It was demolished completely and a new one was built. On the same day the war was fought, the British installed Hamad bin Muhammad al-Busaid as the new Sultan. He would work with the English Empire to abolish slave trade in Zanzibar and order the release of already sold slaves. Many of the British officials who participated in the war were rewarded by the British government, and Hamad would go on to rule Zanzibar for 6 straight years before being succeeded by his oldest son Syed Ali bin Hamad after his death in 1902. The Anglo-Zanzibar War lasted for just 38 minutes and would go down in history as the shortest war ever recorded.